How could I have possibly known that the young man who helped me set up a coffee machine would walk into my life and change everything? I hadn't expected anyone that day, let alone for someone to walk into my home and see the private side of my life that I normally kept hidden. I was used to living alone. I'd been divorced for over 15 years and had built a quiet life, just for me. That morning had felt completely ordinary. I woke up, decided I needed a new coffee machine, and headed to the store. That's where I met Ethan. He was 23, kind, full of energy, and offered to help carry the box and set it up for me. I didn't think twice. I accepted, thankful for his help. When we stepped into my house, I had completely forgotten what I'd left out in the living room. Some personal items and things I usually kept private. They were so familiar to me, I didn't even notice them anymore. But when Ethan glanced toward the couch, his eyes stopped for a moment, and then he smiled gently. "You live alone, don't you?" he asked with a curious tone, almost playful. I felt my face warm up. I hadn't planned for anyone to see that side of me. I gave a nervous laugh and said, "Ethan, let's just pretend you didn't see anything, okay?" He gave a small chuckle and replied, "Whatever you say. But you know, sometimes things just speak for themselves." His tone was kind, not judgmental, and somehow that made it even harder to keep my composure. I felt flustered, a little exposed, but not uncomfortable. It was a strange mix. I looked at him and said quietly, "Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications if you're into stories like this. And leave a comment. I'd love to know what you think." Still smiling, Ethan shrugged. "Honestly," he said, "we all have things we keep to ourselves. It's normal. But sometimes it's not quite enough, is it?" There was something in the way he said it. Gentle, reflective, almost like he knew what it meant to feel alone. Our eyes met, and in that moment, there was a stillness, like the world paused for just a few seconds. I hadn't felt a connection like that in years. "You know," he said with a thoughtful smile, "I noticed something about you when we first met at the store. There was a light in your eyes." I didn't know what to say to that. I just looked at him and nodded, a small smile forming on my lips. "If that's true, then maybe that's why I agreed to let you in." There was silence for a moment. The kind that isn't awkward, but full of thought. I stood there and then said, "I've been in these jeans all day. They're getting uncomfortable. I think I'll go change into something more relaxed. Make yourself at home." Ethan's eyes followed me as I turned, and for a brief second, I felt a flutter inside. Upstairs, I changed into a simple, soft dress, something more fitting for the evening, and touched up my appearance just a little before heading back down. As I entered the kitchen, I saw him standing near the living room, his eyes quietly noticing me again. I smiled and walked toward him casually. "So Ethan, are you seeing anyone? Or do you spend your evenings like I do, quiet and alone?" His expression changed just a little. I saw a flicker of shyness mixed with curiosity. I offered him a seat, and as we both settled in, I noticed how close we were. There was something very natural about it, but it still made my heart beat faster. He adjusted in his seat a few times, clearly a little uncertain, but I just leaned back and crossed my legs, giving him a small smile. "Was this more than you expected when you offered to help with the coffee machine?" He laughed softly, then looked at me again. "Can I ask something?" he said. "How old are you?" I raised an eyebrow, amused. "Take a guess." He hesitated. "Maybe 50. I burst out laughing. "That's flattering," I said. "But you know, age is just a number. It's how you feel that matters." He smiled, a little embarrassed. "Well, you look incredible." Those words warmed me more than I expected. We sat in that soft glow of conversation for a while. I found myself asking again, "So, do you have a girlfriend?" "No," he replied more seriously now. "I'm alone." I believed him. There was something honest in the way he said it. We both sat quietly for a moment, our thoughts racing in similar directions, I imagine. Then, I said something I hadn't planned. "Ethan, come with me." I stood and walked toward the hallway. I didn't look back right away, but I heard his footsteps behind me. When we entered the room, he paused at the doorway. I turned and saw the look on his face. A mix of nerves and something else. "Hope, maybe? Are you okay?" I asked, stepping a bit closer. Don't be nervous. I've got a little more experience with this stuff. He laughed softly, and the tension in his shoulders eased. I reached out and gently touched his arm. That seemed to help. We didn't rush anything. The evening slowed down. Every moment, every glance felt intentional. I saw how genuine Ethan was, how carefully he moved, how thoughtfully he responded. That kindness pulled me in even more. Eventually, we both sat down together again. I asked, "Have you ever thought about moments like this? Just unexpected but meaningful." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, but I didn't think it would feel like this." We didn't speak for a while after that. Just shared the silence, feeling connected in a way I hadn't in years. I didn't know where things would go from there, but what I did know is that something inside me had shifted. As the night moved on, we stayed close. Not just in the room, but emotionally. He looked over at me with a soft expression and said, "Sophie, this is something I didn't know I needed." I rested my head on his shoulder, smiling gently. "Same here," I whispered. And in that quiet, still room, I began imagining what it might be like to not be alone anymore. What if this house, these quiet corners, had someone else in them more often? I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, I wanted to find out. If you've listened this far, I'm guessing this story touched you in some way. There's more to come. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you think. This might be the beginning of something very special.